Fred Richani, TSC, here to recap UFC 241, Cormier versus Miocic 2. Now, before this rematch was made, I thought it was going to be, and a lot of fans thought it was going to be, DC versus Brock Lesnar. That unfortunately did not come to fruition because, well, Brock decided, you know what? Rather than get punched in the face for real, I could get paid $6 to $7 million to work a few worked matches in WWE. And, well, I think he made the right choice, but unfortunately it was at the expense of DC and his wallet. So, Miocic versus DC2 it was, even though DC pretty handily beat him in the first fight. But man, oh man, there was a lot of trash talk going into this, and it lived up to the hype. If you're new to this channel, we cover MMA, combat sports, do all kinds of reviews, features, and interviews, and live recaps like this. And if you want to consider subscribing, please just click that subscribe button, the like button, share this with all your friends, and don't forget to enable notifications. Now, enough of all of that. We had our main event. Daniel DC Cormier taking on the former heavyweight champion Stipe Miocic, a guy who's maybe one of the most underrated MMA fighters of all time. A guy who was a great champion, had the record for most title defenses, beat some great top guys, but when you're out of sight, you're out of mind. And Miocic, he's been out of sight, out of mind. He got knocked out by Cormier last summer, I believe last July. They had the whole thing with Brock Lesnar and Cormier, and, well, it's led up to this. So the first round was all DC. I mean, he was outstriking him. He wasn't respecting his power. He was walking through Stipe's punches. He had a massive takedown, just lifted up Stipe, held him up there for what felt like a minute, slammed him on the ground. Next round, just, I don't want to say totally dominated, but, I mean, he handily won round 2. And then in round 3, Stipe was starting to pour it on, starting to hit some big shots. And that was the round where you could say, you know what? That could have gone either way. It could have gone to Stipe. It could have gone to Cormier. Now, mind you, both guys were trading major shots from rounds 1 to 4. They really were. But Cormier, the first 2 rounds, was handily winning. So round 3 was the round where I'm like, okay. We're going into the championship rounds now. Miocic may have won that. Both guys looked exhausted, by the way, at the end of round number 3. Both guys just up against the cage. I mean, they were beat. It was a grueling pace. One of the hardest hitting fights you'll see. And in round number 4, Stipe caught second wind. And like a lot of people predicted if it went to the championship rounds, Stipe's cardio took over. Stipe felt fresher. You got to keep in mind, too, while Cormier does historically have great cardio and is a phenomenal athlete and one of the all-time great fighters, he is 40 years old. And he's 40 years old coming into this fight with a bad back. And man, Stipe, in round 4, woke up and he realized, hey, maybe I shouldn't be headhunting. Maybe I should actually be, trying to tag this dude in the body. Maybe I should be throwing some freaking leg kicks. And that's what Stipe did. Hit him with a couple leg kicks in round 3. Round 4, he just totally worked on the body. And he hit this beautiful liver shot that would have made Bas Rutten proud. And DC began to stumble. He began to fumble. He began to back up a bit. Stipe started pouring on with these big combinations. Daniel crumbled into a heap. And before you know it, Herb Dean had to step in. And your new UFC World Heavyweight Champion for the second time in his illustrious career, Stipe Miocic, the man who never quit his job as a full-time firefighter, even while heavyweight champion, back on top. I was conflicted watching this fight because I really do generally like both guys. I think both guys are great for the sport, but at the end of the day, at the end of the night, it was Stipe Miocic who was the better man in the rematch. And normally, if two fighters go 1-1, Cormier won the first one, Stipe won the second one, I'd say, damn it, let's do a trilogy. But my God, these dudes tagged the hell out of each other. This was a violent fight, and while Nate Diaz and Anthony Pettis was violent, it was violent in an oddly fun way. This fight was just, I don't know. Stipe is very lucky he didn't have the fight stopped at one point. There was a point where he was turtled up, and Cormier was hitting him with hammer fists, and he was waiting for Herb Dean to stop the fight. Herb Dean didn't. In retrospect, obviously, it was a good non-stoppage by Herb Dean, but there was a period where Miocic wasn't really defending himself, and you could, man, if they stopped the fight, I don't think a lot of people would have been complaining. But man, each of these shots had some lethal consequences. But at the end of the day, it is Miocic as the better man. The mic cut off during Miocic's interview here and there. But he did say that he just wanted to get out of there. It was a tough fight. He's back on top. And look, he silenced the haters. I'm one of the people that said he didn't deserve a rematch. And, let's keep it real here. He really didn't deserve a rematch if you really think about it. But as the old saying goes, deserves got nothing to do with it. Now, okay, from a standpoint of being the statistically greatest UFC heavyweight champion of all time, yeah, he deserved a rematch. But in terms of, box office and for a guy who was as inactive as he was, I mean, he didn't fight since the last Cormier fight. I thought maybe somebody else should have gotten that fight. But, hey, it is what it is. He made the most out of it. There's been more egregious forms of booking in UFC title history. I'm not going to complain about this here. He's a good guy. He's a great ambassador for his sport. He's a great fighter. He proved that tonight. And, that's that. Cormier said he's going to reevaluate his future, make an educated decision with his wife, and go from there. If I'm Daniel Cormier, I retire. Forget the third Jon Jones fight. You made a lot of money. You definitely made a lot of money for this fight. Go commentate for SmackDown. Go commentate for UFC. Maybe do a match for All Elite Wrestling or WWE. Get a big payday. Maybe be an Olympic wrestling coach as well. Do what you got to do. I'm sure he's teaching at AKA, American Kickboxing Academy as well. Just do all that. Do TV. Do some acting. No need to put yourself in danger anymore. Seriously. He's got nothing to prove. Sure, there might be some trolls that say, oh, well, you lost to Jon Jones twice. He technically did, but guess what? Even though Jon Jones is the greatest of all time, there's nothing wrong with coming just a little bit short. And on top of that, DC's never failed a drug test for cocaine. He's never failed a drug test for steroids, let alone multiple times like Jon Jones has. He does not have that asterisk to his name. And I think if this is the last fight for Daniel Cormier, while people will bring up Jon Jones all the time, you got to think about something here. Jon Jones, when he won that UFC title against Shogun, while it was a great moment, Jon Jones was not a huge star. And outside of his fights with Rashad Evans and Daniel Cormier, you can really say if you average out a lot of Jon Jones's pay-per-view buys, at least by the old UFC standard before things got ridiculously oversaturated, he was actually a lot lower on average in terms of pay-per-view buys and interest compared to, say, Brock Lesnar, Ronda Rousey, Conor McGregor, and, of course, George Rush St. Pierre. I mean, he really was. He was still one of the bigger UFC stars. Now, we're at the point where he's been dominant for pretty much like almost 10 years now. He's had a lot of big fights. He's never technically lost, even with the steroids and the stupid no contest, or actually technically it was a loss to Matt Hamill, which wasn't really a loss and everything. So he's at the point now where I don't want to say he's like a living legend, but he's definitely the living, breathing greatest fighter of all time. And by default, he's probably the most popular full-time fighter in UFC. No, I said full-time fighter. Conor McGregor sure as hell ain't full-time these days. I don't even know if I'd consider Nate Diaz full-time these days, although maybe he will be now. So by default, yeah, now when you have so few UFC fights that mean a damn, when Jon Jones fights, of course it's going to drive up interest. Of course it's going to be a big freaking deal. Plus, again, he's still undefeated. But Jon Jones wasn't taken to that next superstar level until he fought Rashad Evans and the whole Rashad Evans rivalry, and until he fought Daniel Cormier twice with all the trash talk, okay? Some great fighters need a rival. I think most great fighters do. They need a rival, all right? And for Jon Jones, it was Rashad Evans and Daniel Cormier. So some people say, oh, Daniel Cormier needs Jon Jones. No. You can make that argument, but I'd say that even at this stage right now, Jon Jones needs Daniel Cormier. Because let's face it, other than the spectacle of seeing who may beat Jon Jones, is there anybody at light heavyweight right now that you really give a damn about? No, other than Jon Jones. So I rest my case, and hey, I hope Daniel Cormier retires. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he lives a great, productive life, and I hope he kills it in commentary and whatever else he puts his mind to, because he's been a great ambassador for his sport. But congrats to Stipe tonight. We had our co-main event, which was absolutely fantastic. The last 3 fights on this card were awesome. Awesome. Nate Diaz, for the first time in 3 freaking years, fought Anthony Pettis, beat him via unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. Nate Diaz just had the better striking. He did take some shots. He was cut up on the brow, but he kept moving forward, kept walking down Pettis, took him down. Almost submitted him a couple times, took his back. There were a couple times where Anthony Pettis was able to get some top control. He did try to armbar him, lock in a triangle, but I mean, Nate Diaz is a great jiu-jitsu fighter, and he looked good here. Not bad for a guy that's been out for 3 years. Now, granted, you got to put some context here. Anthony Pettis is not a natural welterweight. He did have that big fight against Wonderboy Thompson where he knocked him out, but I mean, Wonderboy was pouring it on him before he got that Showtime Superman punch knockout. So, you got to keep that in mind, too. How would Nate Diaz fare against some other welterweights? That remains to be seen. If he fought, say, Kamaru Usman or Colby Covington, I'd definitely have to favor those guys. If he fought Ben Askren, I'd have to favor Ben Askren. But, hey, Nate Diaz is a huge star. It's about damn time UFC gave him a prime spot on a card, a big fight. And look, Nate Diaz made a lot of money in those two Conor McGregor fights. He was in no rush to fight anyway. But, man, what the hell took so long? He was clearly the biggest star of the show by leaps and bounds. I didn't know the UFC needed Nate Diaz again until I saw this fight, and I'm just like, damn, man. I mean, there really aren't that many real stars in the UFC, and Nate Diaz is one of them. After the fight, he called out Jorge Masvidal, and wow, that is a fight I didn't know we needed. I didn't even think about that. I was thinking he was going to call out Conor McGregor, and they'll do McGregor versus Diaz, maybe at lightweight. They'll do the trilogy fight, but called out Masvidal. I mean, whew, that will be a great fight. I don't know how much Diaz gains from that fight. I think it would have been better for him financially to call out McGregor, but you know what? That is one hell of a fight, and if Jorge Masvidal can win, I mean, that'll absolutely take him to the next level. And I think personally Masvidal should be getting the next welterweight title shot, but they're so dead set on Usman versus Covington. Oh, sorry, I fell asleep just thinking about that. I see so many media people going, oh man, can't wait for Usman versus Covington. Oh, it's going to headline Madison Square Garden. It's going to be so great. Like, said who? Said Kamaru Usman's immediate family? Said Colby Covington's bros, the Trump brothers? Like, who? Who is clamoring for that fight outside of anybody in their immediate families? Like, seriously. I mean, I guess UFC is internally, but come on, man, really? Jorge Masvidal knocked out Ben Askren in 5 seconds. Ben Askren had never been beaten. And you don't give him a title shot? Like, what? Stupid. Just as Randy Orton would say, stupid. Stupid. Just, damn. Just, can I say it again? Stupid. Anyway. Let's get to the next fight here. This was also a great fight. Paulo Costa defeated Yoel Romero via unanimous decision, 29-28 across the board. This was a very, very close fight. Another great freaking fight. Ooh, Don Corleone and a few other people online are blowing up my mentions here, and they're saying that Yoel Romero won that fight. Now, I gotta say, I have a soft spot for a crazy-ass dude whose nickname is the Soldier of God, with a freakish physique, who's over the age of 40, who is just dangerous, who could just destroy you with one shot at any time, as Luke Rockhold, Tim Kennedy, Chris Weidman, and countless others can attest to. That being said, this fight was pretty damn close. I do feel like Yoel Romero had a little bit more power, but, I mean, this fight was so freaking close. I mean, really, all those rounds could have gone either way. Now, I think Costa definitely won round one. Or I'll say definitely, but I would lean towards Costa in round one. And then rounds 2 and 3, honestly, you could flip a coin. I know a lot of people that scored Romero round 2 and round 3. And I know a lot of people that at least scored one of the rounds, 2 or 3, for Costa. So it was a close fight. Now, some are making the argument it should have been a split decision and yada yada, or should have been a draw. Honestly, if this fight was a draw, I really wouldn't have complained. I think the best decision might have been a draw, because then we would have gotten a freaking rematch, and maybe this has a 5-round fight. But it was very close. I don't know. I'm not a judge. It was very tough to score. I didn't disagree with Costa. I would have personally gone 29-28 Romero, but I did not think it was a robbery at all, though. I've seen way, I mean, you're talking MMA, folks. I've seen way worse decisions. And I've seen way worse decisions in Frankie Edgar's career alone, okay? Or in Benson Henderson's career, or in Dan Henderson's career, where the Hendersons seem to just pull a decision out of their ass and win. So, no offense to Ben Henderson. I got a lot of love for that guy. I'm just saying, a lot of those fights he had were a little bit close in his career. So, yeah. Great fight, though. I didn't appreciate the crowd booing Costa afterwards. I mean, come on, look. You want to boo the judges, okay, but these men left it all out there on the freaking line. It was insane. And I'm trying to think of a card that had not one, not two, but 3 straight Fight of the Year candidates, like consecutively. I can't think of them. You know, I'll be completely honest with y'all. I was not interested in the rest of this card. I mean, there were some good fights. I mean, Sadiq Youssef knocked out Gabriel Benitez in the first round of the previous fight in a featherweight bout. Derek Brunson beat some dude named Ian Heinisch via unanimous decision, whatever. Corey Sandhagen had a really good win over Rafael Sunsao in the prelims via unanimous decision. But, I mean, you look at half these people. I mean, I don't even think half these people, Sabina Mazo, does she even have a Wikipedia page? I don't think half these people on this freaking card have a Wikipedia page. But if you ordered this event for the last 3 fights, the actual marquee fights of Costa Romero, Diaz versus Pettis, and Cormier versus Miocic 2, you absolutely, positively got your money's worth. And this was one of those times where it really felt like the old days. It really felt like the old days where I was able to gather a bunch of friends, and we religiously, each and every single month, whether I covered it live as media, where I attended it live as a fan, or whether I ordered it on pay-per-view. It reminded me of being with my friends and just watching UFC and having at least 3 to 4 great fights on a pay-per-view card. Not like it is now where, look, a lot of UFCs have some good fights. A lot of UFC pay-per-views have good fights. They may even have some great finishes. But usually, there's only like one fight actually worth the damn with anybody remotely a superstar. This had 3 fights, and while Romero and Costa aren't superstars, Costa at 13-0, star in the making. Yoel Romero, I think he'll be back, although, age isn't on his side, and Anthony Pettis is a great fighter. He can always go down to lightweight. Nate Diaz is a superstar. Stipe and Cormier, both all-time great heavyweights. I mean, overall, I got to give UFC 241, at least the pay-per-view portion, a massive, massive thumbs up. And now, what the hell do we got next? Well, we have Zhang versus Jessica Andrade taking place in China on August 31st. This is a fight on ESPN Plus for the women's strawweight title. And I really can't see anybody caring about this fight. The rest of the card really doesn't have anything worth a damn. And quite frankly, I'm not going to waste my breath going over it because it ain't really worth a damn other than the main event. The next real main event, where there's actually people that I think most folks care about, no offense to Jessica Andrade, is Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on Dustin Poirier on September 7th in Abu Dhabi. A lot of people not happy this fight's taking place in Abu Dhabi. They think it should be taking place in Vegas or something, considering it's Khabib and he's one of the bigger stars. But, hey, UFC's got to do some business in the Middle East. They're getting that money. And Khabib versus Poirier, I think it's going to be a great fight. Technically champion versus champion. Poirier, the interim champion. The co-main event is Edson Barbosa versus Paul Felder. That could be a hell of a fight as well. The rest of the card, it's all right. But, hey, top 2 fights aren't too bad, barring any injuries, of course. And then September 14th, a little less than a month from now, is what I think a pay-per-view worthy main event. And I think it should be on pay-per-view, but whatever. I'm not the one booking here. Donald Cowboy Cerrone against Justin Gaethje. This is taking place September 14th in Vancouver on ESPN Plus. Now, as a subscriber, I'm not complaining, but I mean, this is a huge fight. And when you have a complete lack of marquee fights compared to the old days, like, why not put it on ESPN at least, right? At least. Ugh. I don't get this booking, but whatever. I'm not the one writing UFC's checks, so whatever. And then after that, on September 21st in Mexico City, we have Yair Rodriguez in his first fight after that incredible Korean Zombie fight, taking on Jeremy Stevens in the main event. So, yeah, we got a lot going on when it comes to UFC. It's going to be a busy schedule. And then after that, we have another UFC in Denmark on September 28th. Jack Hermanson taking on Jared Cannonier in a fight only a couple people probably care about. And then our next pay-per-view would be October 6th, UFC 243. Robert Whittaker, knock on wood, my man stays healthy, taking on the stylebender Israel Adesanya in a middleweight title unification bout. So, very, very busy fall schedule. After that, October 12th in Tampa, ESPN Plus, Joanna Jędrzejczyk against Michelle Waterson. Seems like a bit of a weak UFC main event, but that could catapult Michelle Waterson to a title shot. We then have Dominic Reyes versus Chris Weidman on October 18th. That one is actually going to be on ESPN. And then lastly, at least for now on the docket, we have UFC on ESPN Plus in Singapore on October 26th. So, as you can tell, a very, very busy UFC fall schedule, but it's going to be tough outside of Cerrone and Gagey to top the last 3 fights we saw tonight. So before I go, let me take a couple questions here. Do you think they're going to do Nate Diaz versus Masvidal, or do you think they're going to try to do Nate Diaz versus McGregor? I think they're going to hold off McGregor for the winner of Khabib and Poirier. I think if for UFC, there's no point in doing some rapid-fire booking right now. Give it some time. Yeah, I don't think there's any need to rush. I mean, in about a month, there's Poirier and Khabib. See how that fight plays out. You never know. I mean, look, if Poirier gets the upset, if it's a close decision, if it's a draw, if somebody gets injured, you never know, especially in Khabib fights. So give it time. But yeah, I would make that fight. I would. But for those that don't know, I mean, Conor McGregor could be charged with assault in Ireland for punching an old man in the head for not drinking his whiskey at a bar back in April. UFC claims that they knew about this before, and Dana just said, everybody gets punched in a bar. What? Are you kidding me, man? This is the thing with UFC. At some point, they got to hold their superstars accountable. I get it. You need Conor. You need John Jones. But, and this is more specifically to Conor McGregor, at least more recently. Conor McGregor has put himself and a lot of people in danger with his recent actions of the last couple of years. And until this guy goes to prison or something serious happens to him, and where he gets like a serious wake-up call, I mean, I can't see it ending well for him. I mean, the thing is this. He's being enabled by people around him. Nobody can get a hold of him as far as saying, hey, man, chill out. Nobody's getting through to him, I should say. And he's got enough money where he could just keep buying people off and getting out in lighter sentences. And he's Conor McGregor. He is still very popular. So, he's going to get a slap on the wrist by a lot of judges and a lot of different people because he's Conor McGregor and he's got money. But I'm just tired of this. I'm really tired of his antics. The guy is out of his mind, and he probably needs some help. And what can I say? He's just going to keep doing this and doing this and doing this and doing something stupid until it doesn't end well. And we've seen this before with other boxers and fighters and athletes where they're constantly enabled, and it's not going to end well. It's not going to end well. He's going to, at some point, he needs a freaking wake up call, and at some point, somebody needs to be the adult in the room and say, "Yo, man, you got to slow down. You got to pump the brakes because you're going to be throwing your career away." And while he's got plenty of money, while he is Conor McGregor, we've seen with a lot of athletes, they get into trouble. I mean, that money doesn't last forever with legal fees and everything else. So I hope he gets that taken care of. But in the meantime, I mean, goddamn, man. Somebody's got to hold him accountable for his actions. Seriously. But we'll see what happens there. Folks, I want to hear from you, though. What do you think about the state of UFC? What do you think of the current state of MMA? Are there any other fights I should be on the lookout for in one championship? I know Eddie Alvarez, he's primed to compete for the one lightweight championship. Demetrius Johnson, same deal for the flyweight championship. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think's going on with Conor? What do you think is next for Stipe Miocic? Should DC retire? Let me know. Leave a comment below. Tweet us, Facebook us. Do what you got to do. If you enjoyed this update, please like, share, take care. Don't forget to subscribe and enable notifications for more live shows like this. And until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the fights.